Hello and welcome to Candle Blue, and we are doing goal setting letter J. And in a SMART goal SM, we have reached the M for measurable. How do we reach a goal that is measurable? The idea is you can say a goal, I want to be the fastest runner in the world. But how do you measure your yardstick against Usain Bolt? How do you measure everyday progress? How do you know that you are going to the fastest part? So this entire series is about making your goals into small bit-sized chunk so that you can actually work on it. As a small sub-activity, why don't we talk about idea of measurement itself? So your first sub-question would be list out 5 tools for measuring anything. It could be a measuring tape, it could be a scale, it could be hands as in not just your hand, but horses were measured with hands across. So many things that you can use to measure. It could be, the steps that you took at step 1, step 2, 20 steps. Then it could be a longer thing in terms of measurement. It's not always on length. It could be tons in a ship. Kilogram is a measuring tool, so it's a scale we are looking at. So many things you can talk about. Quick game that you can say is, all right, quickly line entire class line up according to your height, ascending to descending order. Ascending to descending or descending to ascending is very confusing. You make them understand. When you say ascending to descending, it goes from lower to high. Descending to ascending, higher to low. Quickly rearrange yourself and align yourself according to your weight. That is interesting. So where are you weighing? The highest way to the lowest way. Again, you rearrange yourself and realign yourself and stand according to the dates you are born in, not the month only. So 2nd April and 15th May, 2nd April comes before 15th May. Fun games on measuring. Let's come to the activity that we're talking about in terms of what we are measuring here. So we've got J1 and J2 all about Dubai and the greatest or the most expensive and the most noticeable hotel in the world, Burj Al Arab. Now, Burj Al Arab has its own history. You can talk about that. It has a helipad on top. It has, a swimming, like an open sea restaurant below. It is shaped like a canvas of a sail of a huge ship or a boat. Wonderful. You will have to go and do a real time planning of these hotel. So find out how do you measure such a huge hotel. Now of course you will like to break the hotel in different part. The base, the tower, the body, the mast is, that the little elongated you say tower that is extended. Essentially most of the hotels compete on these little extra masts there, or the antenna that you can call it. So what you can do as a teacher is perhaps bring this entire silhouette of a hotel or a cutout of a printed hotel, break it down, ask them to cut it and assume what the height would be. It is very difficult to just assume a height. So we've on J2, we've given you what a height of a Burj Al Arab would look like. So Burj Al Arab is now compared to all the popular hotels in the world. We have not taken the towers alone. So most of the hotels, JV Marriott in Dubai, Rose Tower, Burj Al Arab, the Emirates too, there is Petrona Towers. There are a lot of towers that you can find out. Look at the mast finally. The mast protrudes and makes it a little higher. So you have to find out where the other hotels are located. You can make sure what are the hotels taller, why is it taller, is it just preposterous as in just show and pomp, or the hotels serve a purpose. If you remove the pointed mast, which hotel would then be tallest in the world? The idea is, why don't you allow your students to find out what is measurable and what is not? Perhaps you can also ask them to measure the height of the ceiling, things like that. One of the great activities I enjoy is you can bring an entire tool of things like empty discarded bottles, plastic cans, pencils, crayons, sketch pens, boxes, shoes, and then you say, okay, now make sure that you have 2 copies of it or 2 replicas of each, and divide your class into 2 teams and they make a hotel. The tallest hotel, so your rubric will be, it should be tall enough for them to win, it should be strong enough, and it has to also be aesthetically pleasing. So something new, and you can give them points and you say these are how we measure some success, these are how you measure the achievement of others. Last thing on this J2 you do is, what are the tallest hotels near you? So why don't you go online, or why don't you think about it? Maybe there is a Marriott, there may be a Hyatt hotel, there is an Ibis, there is a Ginger hotel, or as simple as Oyo rooms. You can have an entire conversation on what Oyo means. Oyo was started by a college dropout by the name of Ritesh Agarwal. He started something saying on your own. That's what OYO stands for. Today, OYO has more room occupancy, or as you call room nights, than Tata and Marriott combined together. Now that's huge. So you can play an entire activity only on the hotel front. What kind of hotels are there? What has a world hotel been? Why? And another simple sub activity is, why are there no hotels in villages? Strange. No, I'm not saying there are no hotels in village as a negative thing. In village especially, people are so hospitable, the guests are so good to the host, they don't want you to stay in a hotel, so you will end up staying in somebody's houses. Very different culture. So there are tangents you can talk about on entire program on J1 and J2 just with the hotel as your theme. And of course, remember, your idea is goal setting. Let's move on to J3 and beyond. J3 is all about boxing. Now, we are taking a small case study of this North American country, Cuba. Let's learn about Cuba. So, what's the capital of Cuba? Yeah, remember Havana. And one of the famous figures from Cuba is Fidel Castro. He was the president of Cuba, fought with America, had a great legacy in terms of his own personality. Cuba as a country is known, however, for its boxing. Cuba, now the next goal of Cuba is to win 10 gold medals at boxing in the Olympics that's coming up. Find out where is the next Olympic coming up. The last time I remember was Rio 1. It could be beyond that. So do you think it's a measurable goal? So remember SM, we only done SM. You can add the ART part to it. Is it a specific goal? Yes, it is. 10. When? The next Olympic. Is it measurable? Yes, you're giving a number. So if you achieved 9, it's still not achieved, but still you would settle for it. Now look at the history of Cuba and say, can they achieve it? Before I like to go to J4, why don't you draw the small map of North America? And it's very easy, it's like more like a triangle with a tapering cone, and then find out where Cuba is on the map. In J4, you are given a statistics of how Cuba fared in the previous Olympic. So again, I was about to ask you the flag of Cuba. So here is the flag of Cuba. The students can replicate the flag of Cuba in the respective notebooks. You can ask what the star stands for, what the triangle of red stands for, what the blue and white line stands for. So many things that you can talk about. And to answer your question, Olympics 2020 is held in Japan, Tokyo. So they are the Tokyo Olympics, depending on when are you reading this curriculum. So ICC, IOC code of Cuba is CUB Cub. And look at the medal tally so far. They have got 78 gold medals, total of 226 medals in all. Now that's really an achievable thing. So Cuba has taken boxing to a definitely great height. Why do you think Cuba is so good at boxing? You can take up a study of a country that is special in each of the Olympic sport. For example, Iran has a legacy of wrestling. Kenya has a legacy of long distance running. China is brilliant in gymnastics. What makes them so good? India for some time was brilliant with field hockey. So what are the impetus for a country to be so good in these things? So you can find a lot about just goals. How a small country like Cuba puts huge emphasis on goals. It is said that the Cubans run on the track along with the train to train. They are hard boxers. Cuba has a legacy of boxing. So amateur boxers, Cuba's most popular movie by default has to be a boxing movie. It's called Rocky, Sylvester Stallone. There's another movie called Cinderella Man. Find out 10 boxing movies that you can think of. So many things you do just to understand that when you want to achieve a goal, everything from diet to movies, everything is in sync with it. Let's go to J5. And we are saying that what steps should Cuba take to achieve the goal? So what I just shared with you, ask your students, divide them into TPS, think, pair and share, and tell them each student should give you 2 pointers. So some men can say teach boxing at school, diet control, boxing movies has to be there, more prizes for boxing, have great legends of boxing come and address the audience, think about your goals, write it down, the president speaks about it. A lot of things can happen only around boxing. I would love to also you add some boxing facts. For example, the greatest boxer of our time, Muhammad Ali, Cassius Clay. What has he said? Ali's entire history of Ali is by itself a case study for you with regards to the Olympic quest. He won the Olympic gold in 1960, and then when he was in the United States, they denied him the entry into a hotel just because he was black. He threw the very gold medal he loved so much. He was wearing it to even when he was sleeping in the Hudson River, if I understand, or Ohio River. So you can talk about the history of Muhammad Ali, the great legend who had a Parkinson's disease and then he expired. He was called the athlete of the century. You can also talk about some other boxers around: Mike Tyson, Joe Frazier, recently the UK born Amir Khan. So not the actor here. There was actually an official boxing match, a man and a bear, and the bear won. Interesting. Maybe there's some gladiator movies on bear thing. So the boxing arena is called a ring, but it is square in shape. Find out why and what. But if you can bring some boxing gloves, you can add flavor and color to the class. These are the measuring goals on sports. Let's go to J67, our last two activity on goal setting measurable, where we're talking about money management. J6 talks about piggy bank. So what if you want to save some money for a vacation? So how do you measure a goal like that? How much money should you save? For that you have to ask the right questions. So what kind of vacation are you trying to do? It's a great activity. Children love to talk about their dream destination, their dream place. So why don't you draw a little chart here? Tell them, tell me everything you want to talk about a vacation. Where do you want a beach vacation, a rural vacation, a city vacation? Where would you, what is the vacation about? Is it family, friends? Is it about relaxing? Is it shopping? Is it about, having sports? And then where would the hotel cost be, travel, food, how would you fly down to? If it's an international trip, the visa cost, do you have your passports ready? Have you exchanged the money? So example, you go to Italy, you know what lira is, what is the currency rate of lira, or what is the UK pound and Indian currency rate if it's the Indian thing. If you're in Qatar, if you're in United States, it's the dollar or the real or the dirham. It's an amazing activity for you to plan an entire vacation around. Of course, I've given some sample destinations which are very good, from California, Costa Rica, Caribbean, Japan, Venice, Paris. Every city has its own charm. Why don't they find out where are these in the world, and also what kind of vacation each of them would be? So Paris, would it be a beach vacation? No, it would be a urban vacation. But the Caribbean would be definitely a Hawaiian Caribbean beach vacation. It's fun to talk about cities and goals. But now, after having done what's the budget, so your students will give you the budget, and that budget will be very, very interesting. How do you save for the budget is the second part in J7. So where do you save your money in? Of course, most of the kids don't have piggy banks anymore. They may have a smaller currency, but most of them actually have a savings account in some bank. So you can actually bring some bank form and encourage them to open a bank account, involve their parents around it. You can show your bank account, not the bank account per se, but which bank are you using, credit card, debit card, how is it benefiting today, how the online payments windows have become fantastic, what we call the UPI apps, the Paytms, the currencies that we use, cryptocurrency that has been become very popular. Talk about it. But then we also, I would like you to bring a piggy bank in your class. Why is the word piggy bank so popular? Are pigs to do with saving? Well, so there is a small history given on the end of J7, which says that earlier there were a lot of economical clay use, which was called pig, Pygg. And definitely it started coming into that word from the Middle Ages, that metal was expensive, so clay was used, not because you had to break the clay, but it was economical. And also, when they dropped it on one of the clay jars, people would save extra coins. So when you have coins, and that is how they used to barter in, you will not spend three, you will put one in the bank. And that is why the piggy bank word started coming in. You can actually encourage your students to bring one of the piggy banks. I remember as a kid, my father bought a band-aid plastic shape, so this band-aid boy plastic one with a piggy bank. And I love doing, the coin, sending the, putting the coins in until the jar would be full, and then we allowed to go and, binge. So we would spend on maybe chocolates and ice creams, or cakes, whatever you would like to do. The students can do that. Of course, you can teach them a little bit of charity too, but here let them indulge and enjoy, because we're talking about savings and then spending. Talk a little bit saving accounts, talk a bit about why is it important, how would they use the money for, especially the education or traveling the world or buying things like, shoes and books. It is a great idea. We can do a sub activity saying that, okay, every student I give you $100, or the equivalent what a student would think about. Now, for that $100 or whatever the equivalent currency of your local currency is, what are you going to buy? Where are you going to invest in? Allow them, again TPS, so to sit with friends, discuss, and let them come up with the answers. And tell them the best one at least gets maybe not 100, maybe $1 from the teacher. So all the best with your goal setting measurable activity. This was J1 to J7. Thank you. Hello and welcome to Candle Blue. And we are on the letter K, which is health and society. And of course, our core theme around it is our parents. But as we go ahead, I also want students to go about and look at different eras, different generations, what we call as generation X, Y, and today perhaps Z. So before you start this activity, why don't you put these letters on board X, Y, and Z and start asking these students, what do you mean by X, Y, and Z? So who is the generation X? Perhaps the ones today in 2020 are X, are perhaps in the 40s. Maybe the current generation is the generation Z, or maybe infinity. You can ask them, it will be fun to understand. Another term I would like you to introduce is a common term used in the United States called baby boomers. Baby boomers, and a classic example is Bill Clinton. People, United States was ahead in technology. Internet has been a great leveling field. So today, you cannot say that they are absolutely ahead, not light years ahead, for example, like in 1970s, but other countries, developing countries are catching up. So, with this as a starting point, we go to a K1 and K2, our first activity on the health and society activity. It says, find out what did your parents and grandparents use, things you take granted for life. And believe me, it's one of the best stories you have. A phone call. Students do not know the meaning of STD. It is the long distance phone calls used to make. And at a time when 11 o'clock, it would be 1/4, perhaps they don't even relate to it. I was speaking to a friend of mine where I said the word buffering. You used to wait, connect a modem and buffer. Earlier, we had pagers, you had floppy disk, you had antennas, so even a VCR. Today, technology has changed it all. So talk about the current technology and go back 3 generations. So you can talk about a smartwatch and say, all right, generation 1, generation 2, what it had. You can talk about earphones. Today they are Spotify or Ghana.com or Amazon Prime Music. What about one generation before? Perhaps the iPods were very popular. One generation before, the Walkmans had come. A generation before, it was the radio. Do that with 5, 6 things. 4 generations, 3 generations go back around. Also on K1, you've got some very simple music equipments around here. It's all the speakers. So ask them, what do they know about the world of speakers? Bose speakers are very popular. You know about, great microphones. Radio jockeys is a profession which was never there. So yet there were radio jockeys, people who were great anchors and commentators. Ask them if they can find out from the grandparents especially and the parents who they thought were great heroes and actors and what changed now. Also, as you're going ahead, talk about the dress style. The current style of dresses, how was it before? The 3/4 pants or the bottom waist up jeans that we look at, perhaps, or the tone jeans, which is whatever you can call it, the stone tone jeans. What kind of generation has changed now? On K2, we would like them to start using the privilege chapter. What do we mean by is today how privilege or how advantageous is traveling. Take up a local current travel. So if you're traveling locally from one city to another, for example, from Mumbai to Delhi, probably you'll take a Shatabdi or you'll take a flight. How long will it take? How long is the journey total? Perhaps from your home to the airport to the flight, the flying time. 20 years back, what was the best route? It would be train, but not a Shatabdi train. Another 20 years back, what would be another route? A great example you can talk about is pilgrimage. So from India, if you were to go to pilgrimage to, say, Saudi Arabia, people were going by ship. Some people would be taking caravans on camel. People would also walk down. And today there are direct flights around. What about a local pilgrimage? Maybe to Kedarnath, maybe to Sabrimala. What are the options we have got, the facilities we have got, the choices we have got is amazing. Same goes for communication. Take the communication idea we just spoke about, radios until today, where on a click of a button you can tell Alexa to make a call for you. And then privileges in your house. Fridge perhaps is not a luxury at all. It is a necessity. But so is microwave. So is television. Or maybe television is redundant with all the small screen mobile phones. Earlier, people watching in small screens were like, oh, small screen TV. Today, everybody watches on mobile phone. You know how the trend changes, how the correlation to things changes. So this is an entire plan that we would like to do. Then and now unit planner, add some elements to it, add creativity to it, and the class can make a collage. And I would want the class to make a collage. So find out, about radios and floppies on one side, say 1950s, then 1970s, and 2000, and maybe 2020. Maybe you can have a 2050 with Elon Musk electric cars and hyperloops, and maybe it's called Li-Fi, not Wi-Fi, Li-Fi. So your Wi-Fi signal will be given with light. So these are the areas we're talking about in K1 and K2. Let's jump to K3 and K4, to the crux of the topic, the parents. What do you think a dinosaur baby looks like is the first question we ask. And so we've given 4 or 5 dinosaur choices. It's just a simple exercise for them to do mind numbers. This particular one, is it a T-Rex? Is it a Bronchosaurus? Is it a Triceraptor? Perhaps you can just relate to it which one of the dinosaur it is. We have done this exercise as a kid, where in a preschool or maybe in earlier grade 1, 2, you are asked to bring a photograph of your father and mother. What we would like to do here, interestingly, is why don't you request a parent's photograph when they were your age, and then see how much they resemble you. Now this is very, very interesting. A lot of times you would have a lot of elements of your parents and they would look like you when they were young. So if you could get a digital photo, excellent. If you get a physical photo, even better. If you even can ask them to bring a family photo from an album, so this is something you have to request your students and bring a photograph around. On a side note, before we go to K4 and do a little more detail and little higher end studies with genes and hereditary, why don't we do a listing of animals that come from egg and animals that are born directly? So we're talking about reptiles and mammals, birds. What is the key significance between a reptile, a bird, and a mammal, besides the fact that eggs and not eggs? You see, one interesting analogy we can give is, there was a scholar who was asked, just a question to delay him from his task, that give me 10 animals or give me a list of animals that lay egg and give me a list of animals that, give babies. And he gave a very interesting answer. He said, animals with their ears outside are the ones who give babies directly birth to. The ones with the ears inside are the ones which lay eggs, and which is so true. Fishes, reptiles, frogs, all of them are egg-laying species. So you can do that with your kids. You can make them play a game. Even though you know the big reptile species, why don't they list 20 birds or 20 reptiles, which is interesting. One group gets 20 reptiles, one group get 20 mammals, one group get 20 fishes to answer, and one group 20 birds. And the 4 groups, the mammals are the easiest of them. But find out, why did they lose? Is the world always fair? No, not necessary. But you see, you always have parents to turn to. You're just changing the conversation, saying, you see, world is not fair. It's a small game we played with. It's a fun game we played with. But the idea is, we turn to our parents for help, for mentorship, for guidance. So another side activity I would want them to do is, write down 10 things your parents are for you. They are your friends, they are your mentor, they are guide, they are your ATM machines, they are the fees paying machines, they are the ones who get angry, they are the ones who discipline you, they are the ones who play with you, they are the ones who take you for swimming classes, they are the ones who made you learn the first language, they care for you, they give you gifts, they have birthday cakes. So many things around a parent. Perhaps a big wallpaper and everybody thank their parent, a small letter to the parent. It's a great exercise. This is what we are doing in K4. We are talking about, why do you resemble your parent? Or first, who do you resemble, your father or your mother? It could be even be a guardian like a grandfather. So we resemble our parents because of some little things called genes. Genes basically are what we call chromosomes. So XX and XY chromosomes. XY is for a boy, XX is for a girl. So when you want to have a boy, it's a big misnomer and a misconception, especially in illiterate states and people with deep biases and prejudice, that females are responsible for the gender of the child. Go back and debunk this myth. Males, husbands, fathers are responsible for the gender X and Y chromosome. So the husband has X, or if it's XX, it's a girl. The husband has a Y chromosome, it's XY, it's a boy. So you need to clear the word and then explain the word about hereditary. Hereditary is something that traits, it is looks, it is habits, it is personalities you take from your parent. So perhaps you can ask them, if you have a lot of anger issues or very emotional, or your health issues, or you're balding at a different age, you might be taking them from a hereditary perspectives. Do an entire gene analysis. Go and talk about Dr. Watson and Crick, the people who actually got Nobel Prizes for discovering the chromosomes and the gene formula. It is absolutely a different world you can go into, but it's an amazing world you can talk about. As you do that, let's dwell into the last exercise, K5 and K6. Now, since we're talking so much on the parents, we actually continue the conversation, but now you are asked to be the editor of a parent magazine. So you will have to make a content table. Now, first of all, what would you like to be in a part of the magazine? So again, you can divide the class into smaller groups, not too many, but a 4 or 5 is a good group to have. Give them a large sheet of paper, a chart paper, and tell them of all the possible topic a parent might be interested to read about. At the end of it, we would like them to actually to publish their first magazine. So what could you think of a topic that a mother would be interested in? Maybe clothes, baby food, baby time, TV time, what outdoor activities you can do, how do you connect, emotional activities, and then you can ask them a special section for advertisement. So what kind of advertisers will be interested in? So you can go and ask, say, a Huggies or a diaper company will be interested in, something like a toy company, Hamleys will be interested in, maybe some other early learning childhood toys will be interested in, or small retreat or a vacation, a hospital might be interested in, the pediatric doctors might want to advertise them, even things that can just help them, books. So you're talking about schools, preschools might be interested in, so that's the advertisement column. Then you as an editor, what was the key thing you would like to talk about? TV time, health and hygiene, choice of preschool. So allow them to make at least one big edition with one topic. Don't push them to make 2 or 3, but if they got one good one, you'll be very happy around it. As you go ahead and do that, I'm sure you can actually purchase or maybe borrow or maybe find out some common parent magazine, and you can bring a few for the reference for the students. Then K6 says, what kind of name would you like to think of the magazine? So between these 4 names, just give a class vote. What would they like? Parent folk, green parent, parenting, we are a family. And of course, these are just the choices, but we would like them to say, what would your choice be? What would kind of parent book would you like to have? As you go ahead, start the conversation saying, what about blogs? Maybe today parents don't have magazines required. It's a parent world blog which is very popular. But anyway, we are asking them to publish a physical magazine. It could also be an interview with someone who has been a parenting expert, interview with a preschooler, interview with a mother with a lot of kids, how she raised them, interview with a father who has twins. So you can think of exciting columns. And then last thing you can also talk about is people's contribution, or even a merchandising part. What would you like to sell if people have it? Very interestingly, you can actually go to some blogs or websites. One of them I recommend is go to Parentosaurus. Parentosaurus, or another one is Parent Circle, is an interesting blog about a mother who is a mompreneur, entrepreneur and a mom. So mompreneur who started something to help people learn about parenting. A lot of things can be shared about it. Their concerns, their choices, their expectations of the parent can be done there. If in the last activity you did not do the special edition of writing letter of gratitude, thanks to the parent, please ensure that you can do that here. Another interesting you can do is, it's a fun game now on a side note, is everybody mentions their parents' name, first name. So you can tell your father's name, your mother's name, and the profession. So, my father is a captain in the merchant navy, my mother is, special educator, and something like that. And then you put them on a small sheet of paper and dump it in one big basket. And one child comes in, picks it up. So every child will have 2 rounds, of course, right? You be sensitive to the parent on a caveat. There might be orphans in your class. There might be people living with the guardians. encourage them and say your parents are the people closest to you. So if sometimes someone shows a hesitation, you might signal it, red signal, flag it off for some kind of abuse, emotional disconnect, or a child, you can say no, name your guardian as well. So allow that flexibility. But then what the fun part of the game is, everyone comes in, picks up a chit, and let's say the sailor comes in and say, oh, that is Ayush's parent. And then suddenly a word comes in as entrepreneur or someone, a graphic designer. Oh, that is Simran's mother. And it's fun. Let them guess. If they guesses, they get 1 point each. If they guess wrong, so how many can you collect? How many others can answer? It's a lovely game just to introduce the parents and make sure we get a little bonding closer to our parents. How is it related to health in society? Yes. A great emotional requirement in a society, a wide left, is the connection in families. So a great family makes a great society. The health of the society improves. So go ahead, hug your parent. All the best. Hello and welcome to Candle Blue. And today our letter is L. Well, in our career growth, we are talking about the 3R. What are the 3Rs of education? It's reading, writing, and arithmetic. Well, it's so interesting that we'll add on another R and another dimensions to it. But today we speak about L1 and L2. And in that, what we're saying is in a importance of career growth, it's also important to understand the difference between opinion and facts. Now, on a side note, we'll talk a lot about fake news and what are different organizations and agencies doing about it. But let's quickly summarize our L1 and L2. So if you look at this, that the difference between a fact and an opinion. So as a teacher, why don't you go and write on the board fact and opinion? And actually you can add one more, which is called prediction. So let's say a common word. So let's talk about, say, rain. And especially in Mumbai monsoon, that's the only topic we talk about. So when I say rain, what's a fact? Well, you can talk about water cycle, you can talk about rains are required for harvesting. What's an opinion? An opinion could be that, when you pray, it rains. Oh, of course, it's a little controversial, but it's an opinion. Some people may agree, some people may not appear. It is not scientific per se that this is how it happens. What's a prediction? Prediction, of course, with rain, it's easier that the meteorologists have predicted that based on the, the areas, something else, rains happen or doesn't happen. You can go on, deforestation leads to less rainfall. It's a fact. Opinion, well, opinion could be rains are, a reason where people start, a lot of people start becoming unjust and it stops raining. It's an opinion, of course. So then suddenly you start deriving what's a fact and an opinion. For the lack of better words, you can take so many topics. Train, for example, fact of a train and opinion about a train. Then you can talk about humans, earth, fact and opinion. So all these could be your 5 questions on facts and opinion. It's a very important thing because today in language, people confuse between facts and opinion. For example, I can tell that I am from India. It's a fact. Opinion, I am a global citizen. Well, it's not a fact. I don't have anything to prove that. Yeah, I'm part of the larger conglomerate. I work for different goals. I work for different organizations. Suddenly, how do you change an opinion into a fact? A lot of people saying something does not make it a fact. A very important point. It's still an opinion. So fact in definition, and if you look at the post-it notes on L1, tells exactly what happens and can be proven true or false. So it's a hypothesis. Opinion, on the other hand, is an attitude or a judgment, cannot be proven true or false. That's important. Some people say opinions are false. It can be proved after a fact comes in. A great example is sports. Fact, India is a stronger country than New Zealand. Opinion, India will defeat New Zealand. And if you remember the World Cup, New Zealand actually defeated India. So opinions could not just tilt the matter. Even facts, it was a fact based on the statistics, based on the score, based on the performance, but collectively prediction comes in. New Zealand will defeat India because of the overcast condition and New Zealand have better bowlers. So suddenly a lot of things changes when you do that. We have taken up an example of something called modern dolphins. And a very interesting perspective of modern dolphin we're doing is, we have to read the entire chapter on modern dolphin and they have to find 5 facts and 5 opinion, and hopefully you can encourage a team to at least come up with 3 different predictions. So if I just were to read a basic ones, modern dolphin skeletons have 2 small rod-shaped pelvic bones thought to be vestigial hind legs. An opinion is it's a vestigial hind leg. A fact is there are 2 small rod-shaped pelvic bones. So suddenly you know the difference between the two. You'll talk about Japan, you can talk about a lot of other dolphins in the world. Are the pink dolphins existing? Actually, they are, pink dolphins, since the whole picture looks pink, it's about modern dolphins, but Indian Ganges dolphin or the Ganga dolphin is a pink river dolphin. So many things you can talk about between a fact and an opinion. Let's move to L2, L3 now. L3 is a different chapter on a career growth. What we are talking about is a cave painting. We are saying that, you see, the origin of reading, writing, and arithmetic happened much before human actually invented modern day tools and technologies, printing press for that matter, or even a fountain pen. And today the computer, or rather the digital algorithm, AI is what we're talking about. So you can actually, on a side note, before you do L3, you can start talking about the origin of reading, writing, and arithmetic. So draw 3 columns, and on each column write reading, writing, and arithmetic. Ask them which would do you think came first. And we know for sure writing came as a third. Let the students engage, let the students come in. But how do you differentiate between reading and arithmetic? For most of us, it's the numbers that came before letters, right? Unless and until you count communication as a part of reading. So it's a great debate. You can engage the class, you can talk about it. And on your second thing that you do is you create tools for reading, writing, and arithmetic. What are your tools? What makes you sure that reading came at a particular point? Of course, the use of pen was very important. So if you go to L3, the last thing is there's a quote which says, pen is mightier than the sword. Divide the class into 2 groups and ask each group to find out which is true. So, you can swip group also. It's a great class debate, but it's more like an opinion of a class, right? But you tell them your rubrics or your metrics of suggesting which is right is from opinion. You also want facts. So you can say pen is mightier than the sword because can you name 10 swords? Unless and until you are a Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones fan, you can talk about, what are there is a needle Arya Stark has, or the long claw, or the Valerian steel swords. We can talk about it. We do not know, or the sword of Tipu Sultan in real life is one popular ones. We do not know too many swords, but of course books. You can talk from Shakespeare's Hamlet to Odyssey to Iliad's Homage to the modern ones on Homo sapiens to the Harry Potters. So books remain and swords don't. Things like that. So you engage a class in a very lively debate. You give them tools, you give them ideas, you tell them always state facts, which of facts carry a lot of stronger personality. Facts carry weight in a good debate, not opinions. Let's move to the activity here. It's on the cave painting. Of course, this chapter is a lot about your input, and you're talking to your students, and this just one page is an entire activity. We are looking at a cave painting. It's a very easy way to decode the message. So what is your earliest cave painting says? Of course, if you look at the cave painting, it is about some hunters shooting some maybe bisons perhaps. So what it says is the human race started as a hunter until agriculture came and we settled down. So what are the 3 forms of writing you can think of before even you were born? People used to write on parchment, people used to write on wood. There are wood carvings, there are tablets, not the tablets that you eat, or the Samsung tabs or the Apple tabs, tablets like Moses of 10 commandments. So actually there were tablets, which is what perhaps it has restarted again. The whole word tab comes from. People used to write on stone. So stone carvings are very important. Archaeologists, when they dig up, they find these stone carvings, they clays. In fact, another important point of these writings are coins. So people, you can find a lot about people's heritage from the coins. Signatures perhaps are the way artists today says coins were the signatures of the dynasties they ruled back. It could be the Mayan dynasty, the Roman dynasty, or the Greek or the Maurya dynasty. So cave paintings were the earliest form of writing, perhaps even before people found paper and pen. You can take your students on a journey of the invention of paper. It's interesting, from papyrus, from China, Egypt, you go to China. China gave the world how to invent paper, and until to Gutenberg's printing press. It is said that printing press is one of the most important invention of the humankind. It revolutionized because education and a lot of coding can happen. Coding as in a lot of documentation. So all the ideas people had could now be printed and it's spread across. The first book to be printed on a Gutenberg was the Bible. Wow, that's interesting. That shows how religious people, our communities are built around religion. You can talk about, the entire chart and allow them to, write their own history of it. So this one page L3 has so much information, so much of content. Actually, it is the 3R we're talking about. On a final note, why don't you give good, beautiful chart papers, A3, larger than them, and ask them to think like a medieval age person who has no access to writing. What would your cave painting look like? Wow. So, you can give dynasties, you can tell them they are a Inca tribe of South America, or they are even 10,000 BC tribe of human nomads who didn't have any idea. Woolen mammoths perhaps could be another drawing, but let every class from a small group and then draw what they think of a cave painting. So this is a career growth L3. Now from all the 10,000 BC, let's go to a third activity and a completely new one, the L4 and L5. In L4 and L5, we're talking about the invention of the fourth R. Remember, reading R, writing, of course, has an R in it, but that's how you say, and arithmetic has an R again, as a concept. So the fourth R is called the computer. And some people are talking about the fifth R, internet. Are these two inclusive or are they two exclusive? Because computers were invented much before and internet came today. Internet has changed. Another R people are talking about social media, where there is no R in it, but it's the Internet of Things, IoT. So, L4 is again a part of all the conversations we're talking about. What has the fourth R, the computer, done to the industry? For example, spellings or writing. Today, you don't have to really learn spellings and writing. If you're working on one of the most basic document, the Microsoft Word, and if you spell wrong, it autocorrects. Or today there is a speech to translation. So you speak and everything gets translated and written. So authors don't have to sit on a typewriter and type, or on a computer even, they have to just speak up. So modern technology have changed the very way we look at the 4R. Arithmetic. Of course, before people, we talk about a lady called Shakuntala Devi. I'm sure the kids may not even know, but she was called the human computer, because she could add and multiply numbers which are 10 digits long. So 10 digit into 10 digits, she could say. Today, that information looks very, very magical and it is redundant. You don't need someone to multiply, because that's not, you don't want to, waste your memory on something that is not important. So today, very simple thing were calculators. But like typewriters have become redundant, so have calculators become redundant, because number one, it's become a part of your mobile phones, but computers can calculate far faster, far more numbers than anyone before. Another concept that we're talking about with the internet coming in is the human connectivity. So you have changed the way you talk to people. Social media. So my friends are on social media. My opinion is on Twitter. My resume is on LinkedIn. Maybe people have changed everything around. My photograph album, digital album, is Instagram now. So talk about these four very popular social medias which have changed the way we communicate and how careers have changed because of that. Maybe new careers came out of it. So this is L4 for all of us. L5 is a very interesting concept. We all spoken about how internet's changed our life, but how has the four specific organization changed the way internet is? That is a beautiful book by Scott Galloway called The Four. I've always found this book very, very interesting. FOUR. Actually, look at the logos where it comes in. It's not the acronym of anything. F, of course, stands for Facebook, but it's the logo of it. O, as in we're looking at the Chrome of O in Google. Amazon, well, you see the icon A to Z, so the logo actually stands from everything from A to Z. Amazon is like the river Amazon, everything is found, started as a challenge to Barnes and Noble, a book club, and it has revolutionized. And R stands with the logo of a Apple. So find about the founders, find about the location, the work they do, and if they impact your life. Do they impact the world? Yes. Also, interestingly, you can talk about a lot about how do they make money. Some people don't know how do Google make money. Well, you go to Google, it's free. You have never paid a dime to Google or Facebook. Perhaps you have paid to Apple the most when you buy. If you don't buy, how does it affect you, the Apple or Amazon? Most of us have gone to Amazon and purchased something. Ask them, these companies, how they evolve, how they work. So the fourth R is very, very interesting. The internet is very interesting, and hopefully your kids can come up with some really PowerPoint presentation, which is the easiest thing right now, on each of these companies. You can divide them, or even some kind of a presentation on these companies and how have they changed our lives in general. So this is the career growth. Thank you so much. Hope you enjoy. Hope our children really become the giants we are talking about. Fantastic. Thank you. Good luck. Hello and welcome to Candle Blue, and today we are doing the last chapter, the letter M. And every last chapter that we do, we keep it on something called the community service. So in part of a community service, we are talking about something on cleanliness, cleaning the park. So let's go ahead and look at the three activities that we have defined for. Let's start with M1 and M2 first. Well, if you look at the state of parks in today's time, and that's an opening conversation you can have with your children, they are mostly what I call the sad park. The sad park is park that is dilapidated, park that is not taken care of, weeds are growing in, stray dogs are all across. It's a place for homeless people, the drug addicts. It's not a happy place where the park should be. So what you do is on M1, you look at a picture. It's a very image that we are giving is a dark black and white picture of an overgrown park. Of course, the park otherwise looks beautiful, but what was the reason some of the parks, or what are the reasons that some of the parks are so sad? And I'll give you some. Read it. That is inhabited by stray dogs and homeless people, and as a part of it, make them, the children, a part of things that should be, that they are a committee now, so you can divide them into two groups. And a lot of Sky is all about collaboration and making them think. So as a part of these two groups now, they have to make the park a happy park again. What kind of initiatives will they do, what kind of drives they can have, what kind of conversations they can have. So it's like a big chart you give them and allow them to write as many points as you can have. It's a great way also to introduce what I call the PMI, plus, minus, interesting. So what are the pluses that you see in a park, what are the minuses you see in a park, and what is I as in interesting things you can see in a park. So they can do a PMI, and over a period of time we can do fishbone diagram, SWOT analysis, push and pull theory, but today we go PMI. So in PMI, you allow them to write plus, minus, and interesting, and they can fill in everything else that they can think about in a park. Another very good exercise, and this is another side exercises you do, is how do you write a good essay. We have spoken about public speaking in the past chapters. In this one, I'll teach you how to write a good essay. And one of the cardinal rules of creating great essay is what I call pop bean. So when I say pop bean, yeah, that's interesting. So allow them to do POP, pop, BEAN. So now tell them, imagine if you are walking in the morning to a park. What are the things you notice with regards to POPBEAN? It's an acronym. P as in stands for place. So what place are you going? Where is the park located? Is it next to a lake? Is it in the busy middle of the road? It is up the hill. Number two, O as an object. What are the objects you see around in the park? It can be lamp post, a letterbox, a car parked in, and then the most important piece, people. What kind of people do you see? Morning joggers, perhaps, if you go a little late in the day, there'll be children playing, there'll be women walking, exercising, yoga classes, laughter therapy classes. So POP. What happens is when you write down these things, you start making a list of things that will help you to write an essay. B as in brand. What brands do you see in the park? There may be a vendor selling, ice creams mostly. And if it's a morning, there'll be milk vans going on, or milk brands. So think of all the milk brands that you have, or maybe advertisement that you see. E as in emotion. How are people? They're happy, refreshing, they are energetic. Early morning they would be like that. They're crying. Perhaps, emotions also, or late evening they're tired. A as in action. What are they doing? As I said, some of them are relaxing, some of them are talking, kids are playing on the seesaw, some are jogging, exercising, and N is for nature. So what do you see around in nature? What do you see with regards to plants? As I said, if a bad park, the weeds growing in, but so many things you can just talk about in terms of pop bean. When you've written down, and this is itself an exercise in itself, so now children can write a small essay using these words and emotions that you have. Moving on to M2 now. So you've got so many things to do in just M1. M2 is, what are the 5 things you think that must be part of every child's park? So children park, So why don't you start talking about it? What would you name a children park? I remember early days, all parks were called Chacha Nehru parks. Perhaps now I would rather call them, something else, Santa Claus Park, or Mother Teresa Garden. These are real gardens next to my home. And I live in a beautiful suburb of Mumbai, Navi Mumbai, lovely place filled with garden. So, why don't you ask them direction for the nearest child park from your study circle or your school, wherever you are in. So let them guide you, and these are things we would like to ask. M2, there is a picture also which is of a beautiful spread out garden, and I have something called the Wonders Park nearby, and Wonders Park also has these 7 wonders of the world all displayed. Beautiful collages and beautiful models they've made. Maybe you can ask children to assemble today at a park, or maybe have a park party, or what do they see in this particular park. What are the there are different grounds also. There is some water lake, the foam or the carpet that is spread out so children don't get hurt, the sand area which is a play area. So this is a lot about just park. Yes. All right, let's go ahead to the part 2, exercise 2, M3 and M4. Now from park we go to amusement parks, a very different kind of parks. Well, amusement parks are complete different story, and this was started by this man Walt Disney, right? He's a real man. So Walt Disney, the company, was started by someone whose mission was, can I create happiness for people? So he said, perhaps he was bored with the American cinema, he said, can I have create something, amusement parks, how wonderful attraction they are. And today what they are also called theme parks. So what you can do is, before you go on to some of the rides inside the park, why don't you do a survey and study on what Disneyland is about? Disneyland, the most popular, perhaps the largest, maybe some others have overshadowed it, but it started as an area where children go and have fun, adults go and have fun. What are the PMIs? So what are the pros, cons, and interesting? Maybe they become very expensive, maybe they sell very high rated food, or maybe the parks itself are very crowded. You can talk like that. Otherwise, you plan your day well in a park, enjoy it. So talk about it. Go and talk about the nearest experience they had of an amusement park. It could be, perhaps Imagica as in Mumbai, or it could be Wonderla if you're somewhere else. It could be any of the Disneylands in Singapore or in Paris. So something, or it could be the Dubai land, or the there is this F1 Ferrari mall, Ferrari park in Dubai. So you can talk about these as a part of amusement park. Along with that, you can also speak about every amusement park has a mascot. So what's a mascot? Mascot is basically this lovely cute creature that you say that is representing the park. So of course Mickey Mouse is the mascot for Disneyland. What are the mascots around the world for different parks? What are the mascots perhaps for FIFA World Cup? I think it was some kind of a tiger or a wolf. There are different mascots. I remember Asian Games early time had a mascot called an elephant called Appu. So even now there is a amusement park called the Appu Ghar, or Kolkata has a Nico Park. So of course I'm talking a lot about my country as I speak about. You can talk about world that you have seen around. So these are what you do on a park. Talk about it, discuss about it, and as I said, again they do a PMI, but this time instead of too much of writing, it's only conversation. We come to M4, and in M4, you talk about some of the most popular mascots around the world, but what are the rides? You see, rides are what an attraction of a park is. So they are the swings, they are the roller coasters, there's this train, the most you scream, the better it is. Are you scared of the rides? What about some of you who are not interested in sitting on a ride? How do you encourage it? So why don't you do a case study in a class, or rather a role play in a class, where let's say 2 kids, and if you're a group of 10, are not interested to or afraid to sit on a ride. Do you force them, or do you cajole them and get them excited about it? Let the class play a persuasion role play where you persuade them, and as a teacher you realize how good they are. The ones who are pretending they don't like it, tell them, be persuaded as if you like it. Let's see how the kids can negotiate their way around it. Finally, a question on which is a better park, a water theme park or rides only park. There are different versions of it, so you can choose, and then you can have your own experience of the most dangerous ride you ever sat on. Believe me, every kid will have one story of their own to talk about. Some ride they sat down, they would have vomited, they would have got some kind of dizzy feeling around it. And then you can talk a little science. Why do you feel dizzy when you sit on a park ride like that? Perhaps it's a great thing. Again, with the garden theme, on the park thing, of course we speak about it, and the underlying theme, you can go to a park, perhaps I'm not sponsoring tickets, but the underlying thing, since we're talking about cleanliness, you also talk about the fact that what else can we do. Today dustbins are beautiful, penguin shaped dustbins are very popular, dog shaped dustbins are popular. Why do people not keep their parks and amusement parks clean? Why do we throw away tin cans, aluminum foil, plastic, papers? why are this not happening? So what can they do as a campaign? Right. Now let's go to the last part, the M5 and M6, and believe me, this is all about a park share of animals. This is what we're saying is the underlying theme. I don't like to preach so much. When you talk about this wonderful thing about parks and amusement parks and what animals live in, you start feeling for it, and then maybe perhaps you convey a message of cleaning it. So some of the park, a neighbor has installed something called pest-free park. Do you endorse it? So when you say pest-free, there are a lot of pests or harmful animals, insects, birds that come in. Do you think that they really should be removed from the park, or this is the area for them to live in? You see, there is a small remote control sensor device that's used. Now, a class has a debate on this, or perhaps you have a small parliamentary session. Everybody can stand up and give their opinion. It's not right and wrong, it's just your opinion is. Maybe they can also identify some of the common creatures here. If I go from top to bottom, there is a crow, there is a snake, there is a small fox, which is very rare in some of the parks I go in. But of course, dogs, stray dogs, pet dogs, there is this mice, and then there are squirrels. I'm sure these are not bad, but what about pigeons? And you see, the pigeons are a menace in most of the housing societies because the kind of mess they make. So, do you put those, wires, meshes to put them, drive them away, or do you feed them? The same thing goes with stray dogs. Some people feed the stray dogs, some people want to shoo them away. So, you can have a class parliament now, like a mock UN. Everybody stands up, forms an opinion and tells opinion. There is no right and wrong. Nobody cross questions it, but a teacher can comment one or two, but always the comment should be appreciative and encouraging because they spoke about it. And when we do all of this, here we come with the final M6 is what are some of the recreational activities that elderly people do at the park. The question that begs here is why elderly? Of course, we'll talk about different segment of people, but the question is what makes parks so attractive to the elderly and to the children? It's perhaps the spaces, perhaps the open air, perhaps the networking, maybe because the elderly people are mostly at home and they don't have much of like a job or people they meet. So they might want to just come to a park to meet their old folk and they have these sessions, laughter therapies. Some of the Bombay parks have this huge laughter clubs and I love them because you force yourself to laugh, ha ha ha. And I think it sounds very funny, but why don't you do this in your class? Go on, search a YouTube video where they show you how to laugh. Sometimes you fake it, you pretend it, but then because you're pretending it's so funny, people start laughing naturally. So I would love to see that. And if you can do the laughter therapy, even if it's a prank that you start with your kids, I would love to see a YouTube video and we can post it on the Facebook page of skyeducation.in. I would love to see your comment and congratulations for completing this entire mammoth life skill book, The Candle Wax Blue. I'm sure your children are in a molding stage and they will enjoy every inch of it and they would have grown inch by inch into becoming a great life skilled ready individual and a young learner. All the best and my wishes for you to grow as to a learner and a teacher. Thank you.